Hello, everyone. So I'm here talking about the reported interest in a one Josh Kline, and I just saw the news. I meant to get this video earlier, so this would make a little bit more sense. But Easton just signed a 4-year, $24 million deal with the Saints. Literally, like I saw it on the Twitter machine like 5 seconds ago. And the good folks over at the little PFF Minnesota Viking people who run their Twitter thing, when I wrote this down, they did compare Josh Kline to Nick Easton for both their 2016 and 2017 years. Now, Kline was a 70.4 overall grade in 2016. Nick Easton was a 56.4. Pass block grade for Kline was 75.8 in 2016, 67.5 for Easton in that same year, 65.6 in the run block grade, 49.5 for Nick Easton. And then pressures allowed 22 and 12. Kline's a 22. And then 2017, 69.5 for Kline, 57.5 for Easton. 81.2 pass block grade compared to a 64.9, 60.1 run block grade compared to a 57.0, and once again 22 to 12 pressures allowed. And you'd be like, well, if he's that good, or if he's good enough, which clearly those numbers provide, like, hey, he certainly ain't bad, then you'd be like, well, why he cut then? And that's because he kind of had a down year. And he had an overall PF grade of 58, and his pass block grade went down from a 81.2 to a 67.5. And his run block grade went down from 60.1 to a 53.1. And his pressures went from 22 to 38. So there is that. And just to give this some, I don't know, perspective here, this overall grade, if for the people who like the PFF stuff, would actually still be the highest overall grade of Nick Easton's career in his down year. Now, he does play right guard. He does play left guard. That's why when I was making this, I was kind of like wondering why people were like, well, is he your Nick Easton replacement? Not really, because if you freed up enough cap, you can go get him and him. But, yeah, no, that's irrelevant now. And Nick Easton's a New Orleans Saint. So, and I wouldn't say Kline's necessarily a perfect fit in the zone scheme systems that Minnesota's probably going to be running, but I think he has enough athletic traits to survive in it, and you would be buying him for his physicality that he brings. And I think we can all agree the Purple could use some physicality up there up front, especially in the interior offensive line spot, because you got to deal with Akeem Hicks, Mike Daniels, Deshaun Hand now, Damon Harrison, Kenny Clark. You got to deal with all of them, all of them boys. And they strong. They very strong. So you kind of need that more physical body in there. We don't really have that. So, yeah. And there was some other reports saying Minnesota has at least touched base with Wisnewski, Stefan Wisnewski. He was a second-round draft pick all the way back in 2011 of the Oakland Raiders. He spent time, obviously, with the Raiders, the Jaguars, and most recently the Eagles. And he was the guy I kind of pointed out, if they were to miss out on a one Nick Easton, which they now have, you kind of look at Stefan Wisnewski potentially. He was declined. I think it was a $3.5 million option. And he kind of has a similar skill set to Nick Easton. He plays all three interior line positions. He's got athletic traits. He does really well in the zone scheme stuff. And he's like 28, 29. Same thing with Kline. I believe they're both 29. But they still got some good years left. They're both coming off down years. And for what it's worth, Wisnewski has always played at least an average level. So not bad, especially when you're talking about all going back to 2011. I think he's played at pretty consistently at least average, decentish level. And according to the PFF people, he's only allowed 8 sacks in his career. So that's a bonus. That's always a bonus. He did have another down year though. He was a he was at a PFF grade of 55.5, not the best, and that's just how that is. But it's not too unlikely to see some of these guys regain their form a little bit, maybe not entirely, but come back closer to what they actually are if this is a down year. But I think one way we have to look at this is, even though I think a lot of us kind of knew, like given the cap space, it was like we weren't going to get, the Roger Saffolds or the Matt Paradis or Mitch Morse or a Jawan James or, a Trent Brown. We're not looking at those kind of guys due to the kind of money they have. And it looks like the amount of money that they could have to go get one of those guys was instead freed up to go use and keep one of their own in Anthony Barr. And that's just how this team is going to work. At the end of the day, Zimmer's going to get his defense, I think. He's drafted his guys, and we're going to pay those guys, it seems. So this is kind of the spot that has kind of gotten screwed over a bit. And I'm not saying I agree with that, but I think this year we at least have more options, because if they're able to free up enough money and go get a Wisnewski and potentially Josh Kline, I think when you compare just that starting line if you assume those two are starting guards, so the 2019 to the 2018 starting lines of, Reef, Compton, Elfline, Remmers, O'Neal / Hill, I guess, to Reef, Wisniewski, Elfline, Kline, O'Neal, you probably take Kline and Wisniewski over Remmers and Compton. So as far as I'm concerned, that would still be improvement. Because a lot of people are going to say, well, we lost Easton. Well, we didn't really have Easton last year. And that really hurt us. It wasn't good. We really missed him. But at the same time, we need to realize he wasn't some all-world guard, and he is kind of replaceable. I thought the main trait he really brought was he can move in space. He was very good in those scheme systems. He could move. And outside of that, there was no real quality about him that you really love, that you like, I need that in my guard. Outside of that, there was nothing. There was not much. So I thought he was kind of a replaceable guy. And he was kind of a guy that we kind of needed to take another step anyway. Wisniewski, I think, can come back, play at an average level, and kind of hold down the fort for at least a year, maybe two. Same thing with Kline. Now, I don't think they're long-term answers, don't get me wrong. But I think it gives you at least enough flexibility in the draft where if there is a guy there, they don't hamper you from taking that guy like a Cody Ford or a Jonah Williams or any of those guys. But it doesn't force you to reach for one if there isn't anyone there, which is really nice to have. So I'd like to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What you guys think. If I'm not treating the Easton thing as major as it could be, even though I think they probably have a plan in place in case they missed him. Just let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about all this stuff. And until next time, bid y'all adieu.